Everyone in the gallery, to councillors and staff, and welcome to the September 11th Ordinary Council meeting, and I declare the meeting open. The City of Swan acknowledges the traditional custodians of this region, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and their continuing connection to the land, waters and community. And we pay our respects to elders past and present and their descendants. Just like to let you know that the terms and conditions of entry into this meeting are posted on the door as you came in, and please ensure that you've read them prior to attending this meeting and abide by them. Tonight's attendance and apologies. We have all councillors in attendance. We have an apology from Councillor Aringo, who's in the Pierce ward, and if there's any other apologies, you can just let me know. Move on to declarations of financial proximity interest and interest affecting impartiality. Deputy Mayor Johnson declared an impartiality interest in item 14.1.1, proposed City of Swan Bushfire Brigades, Local Law 2024, as he is a volunteer firefighter but not at the City of Swan. Councillor Henderson declared an impartiality interest in item 14.2.3, which is the Metropolitan Region Scheme Amendment, Brabham and Dayton Urban Precincts, as he is a member of the Friends of Whiteman Park Committee, and there was a deputation made by Mr Harry Gratt. We have Councillor Bowman declared an impartiality interest in item 15.2, which was Councillor Johnson's revocation motion, CEO performance review, as Deputy Mayor Johnson referencing him in his reason for his motion. Are there any other councillors that need to submit a declaration of interest tonight? If there is, can you just hand it up, please, to Acting CEO Mr Bishop? Thank you. And we move on to public question time. So questions and answers recorded in the minutes of the meeting may be summarised in accordance with the Local Government Administration Regulations of 1996. And all questions received for this meeting have been answered, responded to, and have been included in this schedule. And all questions will be published in the minutes of this meeting. Move to 5.1, answers to questions which were taken on notice. We have nil tonight. And 5.2, questions relating to the reports contained on the agenda. And 5.2.1, questions of which due notice have been given. So we received 5 questions from Ms Laura Osborne. She has been emailed her answers. And 5.2.2, questions without due notice for items that were on the agenda only. There is nil received. Is there any member of the public wishing to ask a question on an item on the agenda tonight? Hello. Would you like to come up to the lectern? And if you could just let everyone know your name and you can ask your question. Thank you. You just push the button on there, thanks.
Thank you. Thank you to the Mayor and councillors for allowing me to speak. My name's Lauren Osborne, so just a correction from that. I'm from Club Physio in regards to the paid parking. So my question, I'll try and keep it brief, was in response to the answer from Leon from the City of Swan to question 1 regarding parking permits for our staff. He answered, currently parking permits are not offered due to potential inequalities in such systems. The highest priority of parking is for customers, and if parking permits were issued to all businesses and staff, you'll end up with parking being unavailable for visitors and customers. Now my question is, given we are currently parking in those parking bays which are marked for paid parking, and we'll have to continue to do so even if we do have to pay, because where else are we actually supposed to park, how is having a parking permit going to have any effect on said customers and the availability, because we're taking those spots up anyway? It just seems that the only thing that would actually be affected is the amount of dollars going into the council's pocket, instead of keeping them within our local small businesses. It's like I said, the spot's been taken anyway. So we're not opposed to paid parking because we very much understand the reason why it's there. However, given like our staff, I'm going to have to subsidise those. I can't expect them to pay, because if they do, they probably will end up leaving, so then we won't have those services. So that's going to cost me in excess of $15,000 a year just in parking. And then if we have them move their cars instead of paying parking in the shorter term.
Thank you very much. I just had to remind it's a question.
Yep.
So I need to give Mr Vanderlyn a chance to respond to that. So.
Yep.
No, so thank you, Madam Mayor, through you. Just to confirm that the issues raised through the questions put by Mrs. by Laura was all related to the Ellenbrook Parking Management Plan, which is recently being advertised, and that's being dealt with separately, actually by our assets section. So what these questions are basically saying, so in the first instance, all the issues raised will be addressed through that process. It is not, the item in front of council tonight does not determine that those parking bays that you are talking about will be parking bays. That's not on the agenda tonight. That is proposed through the Ellenbrook Parking Management Plan, which was circulated and on which you've commented. And the plan, that in your questions there was a plan attached as well, which identified those parking bays. You'll see that plan comes out of the Parking Management Plan. So all the submissions received on the Parking Management Plan are currently being assessed, and decisions on that will have to be made. Currently within the City of Swan, we do not have a situation where there are paid parking in a commercial area where we facilitate permits for staff without being paid for. Ellenbrook, and as you've submitted through the issues that you've raised the fact that Ellenbrook is different to, for instance, Midland, because your medical centre there is in competition with others, say, for instance, in Averley and Brabham. And having your staff have to pay in Ellenbrook is very different and will be in competition with those others. We don't have such a situation in the City of Swan at the moment. So that is what is reflected in on answer one. At the moment, the city doesn't support staff permits within such areas. But in the Ellenbrook scenario, you've raised this issue now, and it will have to be properly assessed, and we'll get back to you on that through that process, which is separate from the item that is on tonight's agenda. So all your submissions, there were other submissions as well, are being assessed, and that will be addressed in separate recommendations that we'll come back to you. And we're happy to meet with you as well and have a discussion around that. But clearly, you've made a very good point through that submission, and we've received that through other submissions as well.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. I'll ask, is there any other member of the public wishing to ask a question on an item on the agenda tonight? There's no? Okay. I'll just ask if someone can just turn that microphone off. Thank you, Mr. James. 5.3, are there other questions to items not contained in the agenda? And 5.3.1, questions of which due notice has been given, and there was nil. But I will ask the gallery, is there any member of the public wishing to ask a question on an item that is not on the agenda tonight? Right. Okay. Oh, sorry, I think I see a hand. Yes. Hello. Hi, how you going? Good, thank you. Did you want to come down and ask your question? Just introduce yourself. Just push the speaker on. You can introduce yourself. And this is questions that are not on the agenda tonight.
Oh. Hello, my name is Janine Bell. I'm from Caversham. I'm addressing the situation of a submission that's been lodged to the City of Swan for the location of 5 Bennett Street, Caversham. And I am curious to know why only a 200-metre radius was notified to residents for that application.
Okay, thank you. I'll ask through Mr. van der Linde.
Madam Mayor, that the advertising of applications are dealt with by the impact of the application. So normally we look at the area and then determine what area is included in there. Apart that's the area that will be included in direct letters, but the application is also more broadly advertised. I will have to look into the details of this specific application. I'm happy to come back to you on the exact reasons why that 200.
I mean, obviously it's a bigger picture of what's going on, but am I able to lodge a unverified petition in relation to that submission to the City of Swan for 5 Bennett Street, Caversham?
Madam Mayor, I think the legal persons can help me with this, but at this point in time, that application is advertised. So whether you submit a petition or whether you submit a submission on the application, it will have the same impact. But to answer you, I think you can submit a petition which will be dealt with as a submission on the application itself. I can also assure you that based on the submissions we are receiving, we're receiving submissions far beyond the 200 meters, so people are well aware of the application.
If you had any other questions that you wanted staff to respond to, you can leave an email address and phone number and contact details if you like. Or did you have a further question?
Well, I've got plenty of questions around that application that's been submitted, and the impact of Caversham and the parking, the environment of the Bennett Brook. I have spoken to Rob Henderson this afternoon over the issue, and there's a lot of community support coming forward in relation to that application.
Okay. Did you want to email staff so that they can talk to you about those questions? Would that be easier?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Did you want to leave your name and contact here? Or Mr. Van der Linde will come and grab those details from you, if that's all right. Okay.
Thank you.
Mayor, was there a petition to be presented tonight or at another time?
No, I have no petitions to be been received as yet. So, but you, if it helps, to liaise with Mr. Van der Linde over those questions and be able to give you some direct answers.
Okay, excellent.
Thank you very much, Janine. I'll just ask again from the gallery. Thank you very much, Mr. James. Are there any member of the public wishing to ask a question on an item that was not on the agenda tonight? No, happy or good. And we'll move on to part 6, which is public statement time. And registration for public statement time at council meetings was required by 10 a.m. on Wednesday, September the 11th, 2024. And I have Mr. Richard James in support of the recruitment of compliance officers in asset management. Thank you, Richard, and you have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, councillors and staff. Richard James from the North Swan Land Conservation District Committee. Following on from my questions at last month's council meeting and a subsequent meeting with the manager of the Asset Management Department, I now have a better understanding of the compliance function within the Asset Management Department at the City of Swan, and it is worrying. It's worrying because the City of Swan is so far behind other LGAs, such as the City of Wanneroo and the Shire of Augusta Margaret River, when it comes to compliance checking of developers and builders. Over the last couple of council meetings, there has been a fair amount of debate in relation to residential developments within the City of Swan. One expression that has been used on numerous occasions to describe these developments is urban sprawl, and the impact that it has on the natural environment. Currently, the City of Swan is predicting that an additional 9,880 residential lots are planned for Billsbrook alone by 2051. Whilst I can understand the reluctance to support urban sprawl, I can see that the need for development is driven by the state government, and the City of Swan is just one step in the process. One step, but a very important step. Rather than block all development, it needs to be recognised that in the planning phase, the protection of the natural environment is paramount. One of the more insidious problems arising out of developments is the damage to our waterways as a result of either non-existent or totally ineffective erosion and sediment control measures. I should add that erosion and sediment control measures are always a requirement in the planning phase of the development. Because of the lack of ESC measures, there is already damage being done to the Kiatmunga Brook in Bullsbrook. Water quality testing undertaken on behalf of the...
Thank you, Mr. James. That's your 2 minutes. Do I have a mover for an extension? Councillor Catalano, do I have a seconder? Councillor Dawn. And what was the extension time? 2 minutes. Thank you, Mr. James.
Thank you very much, councillors.
My apologies. Was there anyone against? No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Water quality testing undertaken on behalf of the Department of Biodiversity, Conservation and Attractions by the Ellen Brockman Integrated Catchment Group has identified a massive increase in total suspended solids in the water, which correlates exactly with the commencement of a nearby residential development. This issue can be attributed to the lack of compliance checking by both the Planning Department and Assets Management Department of erosion and sediment control measures by the City of Swan. I understand that currently the Asset Management Department has a recruitment request in place to employ 2 compliance officers, even though they actually need 3, which means that even if they get their approval, their compliance team will still be understaffed. Madam Mayor, councillors, I urge you to recognise the need for a fully staffed asset management compliance team and support the recruitment of the required staff. The cost of a compliance team will be mitigated by reduced remediation costs borne by the City of Swan after development handover. So for the City of Swan, it is a win-win situation. The environment benefits due to reduced negative impact and a potential cost saving to the City of Swan. Please support this recruitment.
Thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Mr James.
I did mention in my words about total suspended solids. This is a water sample from the Kai at Munger Brook. If you could see closely, you would see that the clay has settled to the bottom of the container. When the water is moving, that is the quality of water which comes straight off a residential development. Thank you.
Thank you for that visual and thank you for that public statement. Move on to part number 7, petitions. There have been nil petitions received for this evening. Part 8, deputations. All deputations for items on the agenda were heard at the agenda forum held on August the 7th, 2024. Tonight we have no announcements by myself and leaves of absence. Are there any councillors requesting a leave of absence? If there is, can you just fill out the form please and hand it up to the CEO? Thank you. Move on to part 11, confirmation of minutes. Confirmation of minutes and of the ordinary meeting of council held on August the 14th, 2024. Can I have a mover and Councillor Bowman and a seconder? Councillor Jones, thank you. Is there anyone against? No, it's carried. And move on to part 12, business left over from the previous meeting. If adjourned, there is nil. So that brings us to part 13, which is the adoption of those recommendations contained in items not withdrawn. So for the benefit of the community members that are observing the meeting, the council uses an en bloc method of decision making, and this means that the agenda items where council supports the officer recommendation are not debated separately. So one vote is taken on all of the items, and then the officer recommendation is therefore the decision of the council. The following items have not been withdrawn for individual consideration, and they'll be dealt with the via en bloc method, and therefore the officer recommendation will be the decision of council. And the items are 14.1.2, revised audit and risk committee terms of reference. And we have 14.1.3, which is policy C067, which is risk management. 14.2.2, City of Swan parking framework. 14.5.1, which is the financial management report for the period that ended 31st of July 2024. And the last is 14.5.2, which is the list of accounts that were paid for July 2024. Can I please have a mover, Councillor Miles, and a seconder, Councillor Bowman? Thank you. Is there anyone against? That's carried. Move on to part 14. So then we move into the reports, and these are the reports that were withdrawn for debate or absolute majority vote required. The following reports have been withdrawn for debate in accordance with the Meeting Procedures Local Law 2023, and they'll be dealt with by council individually. So 14.1.1 is the proposed City of Swan Bushfire Brigades Local Law 2024. Can I have a mover of the officer's recommendation, please? Councillor Henderson? And a seconder? Councillor Bowman, thank you. Now, the purpose of the local law is to provide for the establishment, organisation and maintenance, administration and funding of the Bushfire Brigade. And the effect of this local law is that the Bushfire Brigades will be organised and managed to comply with this local law. Now, I ask the mover of the motion if they would like to speak to the motion. No? Or Councillor Henderson?
There's really nothing more to add. The document has been well presented, and I want to thank staff for the effort they've put into it.
Thank you. Seconder?
Madam Mayor, was there anyone against?
No, there's no one against. We can put that to the vote. All those in favour? So Councillor Catalano, Councillor Dawn, Councillor Singh, and Councillor Bowman, Councillor Jones, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Miles, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Podovnik, Councillor Johnson, Councillor Howlett, and myself. That was 14, so that's carried. Okay, that's quick and efficient. Yeah, so we move on to 14.1.5. New delegation. Designate contractors as sorry, my apology. 14.1.4. Oh, we've gone over a little bit. There's one on the bottom tip. So 14. Oh. Just checking we've got all the agenda items here. One missing? Missing one. Okay. So on here. Where have we got? Yeah, thank you. Thank you. So. Okay, so we just had one that was missing on there. So we move to 14.1.4, which is the fire hazard reduction notice of 2024/25 on page 50. Proposed motion by Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that Council resolve to endorse the City of Swan Fire Hazard Reduction Notice 24/25 with amendments to Section 2 and Section 7 as below. In Part 2, all land greater than 5,000 square metres, being 0.5 of a hectare or 1.2 acres, amend 2C3 2. If the land is stocked, compliance with conditions 2A and 2B will be postponed until the first day of December. And in Part 7, which is the fire break specification, fire breaks are to be installed and maintained clear of all obstacles and flammable materials, in brackets example, maintained to mineral earth, gravel, limestone, bitumen or green lawn to a height of no greater than 25 millimetres, close brackets, to create a minimum 3 metre wide trafficable surface suitable for four-wheel drive vehicles. 2, endorse the increased promotion of alternate fire hazard reduction application process, which is property specific within the Swan Valley Planning Act area, with the application process being extended to October 31, 24. And the reason for the changes, and I just want to say thank you to the staff again for these improvements. The proposed amendment addresses a number of errors in Section 2, and the proposed amendment to Section 7 provides landowners with increased clarity and options to achieve compliance with fire break specifications while still ensuring the safety of firefighters and that fire breaks are free from flammable materials.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Zanino? Does anyone wish to debate? Is anyone against? No one against? There's no one against. We'll put that to the vote. Oh, sorry, my offence. So it is a unanimous vote. So move on. So that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Then we're going to pop back to 14.1.5. if you're following along, is the new delegation designate contractors as authorised persons, Building Act 2011, page 63, and this is an absolute majority vote required. Can I have a mover of the officer's recommendation? Councillor Bowman. And a seconder? Councillor Jones. Is there anyone against? No. There's no one against. It's carried unanimously. Right, so we'll move on then to 14.2.1, which is, 14.2.1, the Movida Estate Acoustic Wall on page 68. Proposed motion, Deputy Mayor Johnson.
Yeah, thank you. My motion is that Council resolve to defer a decision until a submission from the Noise Wall Action Group has been received. And the reason for the motion is representatives of the Noise Wall Action Group have requested a deferment to provide the group with enough time to make an informed submission. The action group is newly formed and needs time to organise and make submissions.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Howlett. Is there anyone against? Question. Councillor Bowman.
Can I ask how long are we deferring it for, or is it indefinite? Should we be putting a time limit on it, like for 2 months? Or
Yeah, I can answer that. The original version of the motion was to defer until October, but I was advised by staff that this was a better formulation to allow some flexibility for the action group. I do know they are intending to make a submission at the agenda forum for the October meeting.
Thank you. Question?
if they tend to make a submission at the agenda forum in the October meeting and it's not actually on the agenda, then they won't be able to make a submission, my understanding is.
Through you, Mr CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess we wanted to avoid the situation a bit like this meeting where we've put it on the agenda and they're not quite ready yet to make a preparation or deputation. So we have advised the Deputy Mayor that it would be reasonable to word it this way, and it just gives a little bit more flexibility for the community to provide a response.
Just to go back to my question, if they tend to make a deputation at the agenda forum, are they allowed to if the item's not on the agenda?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we would be advising them if they make if they make a submission to the city, then we would bring the report forward to a council meeting and they'd be able to make a deputation.
Questions? No. I'll ask if anyone was against the motion. Does no one like to speak against the motion? The motion is carried. It's unanimous. Okay. So moving quite along the agenda, we move to 14.2.3, which is the Metropolitan Regional Scheme Amendment, Brabham and Dayton Urban Precincts on page 86. Proposed motion, Councillor Dawn, if you'd like to read out your alternate motion.
Thanks very much. The Council resolves to 1. Advise the Western Australia Planning Commission that 1. Council does not support proposed Metropolitan Region Scheme Amendment 1421. 2. That Council requests the WAPC as the landowner to improve the environmental values of the Parks and Recreation Reserve through significant planting of target specific species of flora found in the area. And the reasons for the motion: to enhance the identified ecological link identified over the site and to benefit the broader area where vast areas of vegetation is lost to accommodate residential development. I'd like to thank the staff for their help.
Thank you, Councillor Dawn. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Catalano. Is there anyone against? Councillor Bowman, do you wish to debate it? Thank you. Councillor Dawn.
Great, thank you. One of the most important reference points when considering the MRS amendment is the city's local biodiversity strategy that specifically lists this specific ecological linkage as a priority for protection. How can we as councillors oppose our own local biodiversity strategy? In the heart of Brabham and Dayton, preserving the natural landscape is not just a matter of aesthetics, it's vital to ensuring ecological sustainability for future generations. What is left of the biodiversity, maintaining its integrity, should be a priority. By replanting with species native to Brabham, we can enhance the local ecosystem, providing habitats for wildlife and promoting a healthier environment. Driving through this specific area on the agenda, I observed people walking their dogs in this location. It became clear that this space serves as an exercise hub, a connection between residents and nature. Sure, we all agree that this is only a small portion of land to be rezoned, but for this very reason, being a small portion, it should remain as it is. Who wants to live right up against Drumpelia Drive as their backyard? Is this truly the affordable housing solution we envision? A major road as your closest neighbour. The compromise for the first home buyer. This is what your budget includes. Views of the main road, 4-lane dual carriageway. Moreover, retaining as much natural land as possible is crucial for the ecological linkage that's still being mapped out. These linkages are vital for the movement of species and the overall health of our ecosystems. Lot 94 was designated as public open space and is part of a regional ecological linkage between Whiteman Park and Bush Forever 200. The existing mature trees could be enhanced with increased planting of species native to the area, with importance protecting those species under threat and allowing native fauna to thrive. By protecting these areas, we're also safeguarding the natural heritage that future generations will inherit. We must allow future generations to enjoy what we are saving. Their perspectives and values will shape how we interact with our environment. By prioritising conservation and responsible land use today, we can leave behind a legacy of ecological awareness and appreciation. This ecological linkage is listed as a priority to protect within our own city's local biodiversity strategy. So once again, I repeat, how can we as councillors oppose our own local biodiversity strategy? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dawn. Councillor Catalano is the seconder.
Thank you. This is about more than ecological linkage and corridors, as the amendment is to rezone to urban land that is currently zoned public purpose, parks and recreation and bush forever. These portions of land have been reserved. That means the land has been put aside, saved, protected for future generations. For any changes that need to be made to infrastructure along Drumpelia, for green spaces for people to recreate and as a buffer between roads and suburbs so that people can live healthy lives, and for the protection of bushland and all of the flora and fauna that has lived here for millennia before we ever arrived. People need nature. Yes, I've heard there is a housing crisis, but plainly, as the population increases, and increase it will, there will be from now on always a housing crisis. Get used to it. And with dwindling, scarce land resources, that is why we have reserved land, so that everyone knows that some land has to be set aside. Otherwise, we don't have resource management. We have resource madness, where we use up everything we have today as if there was no tomorrow. No need to save is, to my mind, a very bleak admission that our society really has no future. I refuse to believe that. I want to see us make decisions today that keeps reserved land resources for the future, for my and for your children and grandchildren. That is positive and that is optimistic about our survival here. It gives us hope. It gives us wiggle room in the future. Even in the 1950s and 60s, when the population was small, land was reserved for public purpose and recreation because those people then remembered the Great Depression and they knew the desperation of people in real crisis. I take up Councillor Henderson's point raised at the Agenda Forum that Issoudun, now zoned bush forever, currently working as a fire break, and if it is rezoned, will likely need a new fire break that will have to be carved out of the adjacent bush forever. As I have already predicted, even now constantly chipping away at bush forever, when we had the whole community in agreement that some bush should stay bush forever, not being chipped away forever. Is this really about a housing crisis, or is it more about profiteering at the expense of future generations who will have nothing left and nowhere to go. I'm here to fight for the future. If we use up all our reserved resources now, there will be nothing left in 20 or 50 years' time. And I'm sure that no one wants to imagine that dystopian nightmare.
Thank you, Councillor Catalano. That's your 3 minutes. Now, I'll ask, is anyone against the motion? Councillor Bowman.
Question first through you, Madam Mayor, to the Director of Planning. The identified ecological link, am I correct that that actually goes over development that's already existing and a train station?
Through you, Mr van der Linde.
And I refer to page 95 of the agenda.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, through you, one can refer to page 95 of the agenda. That shows the ecological corridor, and it is correct, it is shown as going over Bush Forever sites, and to the north of this site it runs through an area already zoned urban and past the train station, and then through basically where the Brabham shopping centre is.
Madam Mayor, next question through you to the Director of Planning. How do you, one, enhance and identify ecological link when it's already going through current urban and current development? Has that been done before?
Madam Mayor, through you again. The purpose of the ecological linkages, if you go back to the data set that was prepared by Welga at the time, it identified locations of vegetation, and it talks about those pockets of vegetation that's been identified as stepping stones to determine a linkage in future. So that if you go through the document, it indicates that those pockets of vegetation can be up to 1,000 meters apart from each other, and then the purpose is you try to link it in various ways. Where there's no development, it can be linked through vegetated corridors, and those vegetated corridors, they then say in that document, there's various scientists that's given input into it, and there's various positions, but on average they say that those linkages should not be narrower than 100 meters, but up to 400 meters or wider. But it also identifies that in certain places there are development, the areas are already developed. And then it talks about supporting those linkages with green spaces, vegetated drainage management systems, tree planting along streets and so on. So there's various layers of linkages, if you can put it that way. So within a developed area, it could be sections, narrow parks, vegetation along streets, so where you obviously cannot have a 400 meter wide vegetated corridor through there.
And final question, can this council suggest to WAPC, since we're only being referenced, that they look at moving the ecological link?
I suppose the council can ask the WAPC anything they want to ask them, but if you consider, and we've addressed it in the report, the MRS scheme report that's attached to the application, or to the item, in summary, what is said there by the EPA and WAPC is that there's likely not to be there's likely to be insufficient environmental and planning reasons for the retention of the Parks and Recreation Reservation within the amendment area. But they then specifically go further and say such consideration may need to be given to the potential retention and protection of this vegetation in subsequent planning stages. So the comments by the EPA at this early stage of the process have identified that there are vegetation within the corridor that can be protected, but it's not sufficient that in their opinion that it can't go to urban, but you have to address it at later stages in the development.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, if we don't like something, one little part, do we throw everything away by saying no? Here's our chance to provide what we think to WAPC. Whether they'll listen to us or not is another thing. But councillors, the thing that I kept hearing was the ecological link. Now it's quite clear we can't have the ecological link as per page 95 because there's houses being built, there's a train station being built, and that has made that ecological link redundant. But what we can do, councillors, is we could strongly suggest, and I foreshadow my alternative motion because this is what it does, to the WAPC that they look at shifting that ecological link. Because I agree, if we go and let them just do what they want to do, the chances are that ecological link is gone forever. And that's what we don't want. What we want is identified area that's an ecological link. Councillors, if you support this motion, my prediction is we will get nothing. WAPC will say, thank you very much for your comments. We'll go and do what we want to do. So councillors, if you want to support the ecological link, please do not support this motion because you're not supporting an ecological link. Councillors, this is our chance to go back to WAPC and say what we don't like. This is our chance to strengthen things like the ecological link. Bush forever sites that have roads in it are not bush forever sites. That has gone. That went many years ago. Councillors, we need to be practical about this. In the last month's structure plan, we talked about things like higher density near the train station, a TOD. This allows that to happen. Councillors, we talked about looking at the structure plan last time and how that actually interconnects with the train station. This allows this to happen. But what we can do, and what I really, really suggest we do look at, is how we can actually get an ecological link. Now, 100 metres, you know, that's the minimum, but that's something we need to look at. So I cannot support this motion and foreshadow my motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. I'll ask, is there any councillors who'd like to speak for the motion? Councillor Henderson.
Councillors, I actually have a great deal of consideration for Councillor Bowman's foreshadowed motion. And the last thing I want to do is throw the baby out with the bathwater. And that potentially has a bad outcome for all of us. Just want to clarify something before I continue, and that is, whilst I did raise the issue about the fire break on lot 801 at the last meeting, staff clarified that the Bush Forever 200 slither of land is actually on Isidore Road itself, not the fire break. So that's been clarified. But why am I supporting this? Well, it's simple, councillors. Go back a long time, MRS 95033 set aside a rail alignment, set aside a transit alignment, should I say, set aside a Perth to Darwin highway alignment, set aside a whole lot of things. The previous Minister for Planning decided to put a road, Drumpelia Road, through Whiteman Park, taking more of Whiteman Park. In fact, decided to put the train line through Whiteman Park when the alignment was originally planned for Reed Highway. All those things have been done to the detriment of Whiteman Park. And I'm standing here because I'm sick and tired of Whiteman Park being continually nibbled away. Continually. Now, I recognise that it's been isolated. This block of land is lot 94, I think it is, and 95. I recognise that. But I'm simply not going to accept 1 square metre more. I won't vote for another piece of land being taken off Whiteman Park That's what this is. It could have other purposes, and part of those are environmental, not necessarily entirely, but in part it could be a good outcome if 94 in particular was rehabilitated and linked the Bush Forever 200 site better with Whiteman Park. So, as I said, I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but I have no choice. So, thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. I'll ask, does anyone like to speak against the motion? Does anyone like to speak for the motion? If there's no further speakers, I'll ask for Councillor Dawn for a right of reply.
Thanks very much. Look, just as I said, this ecological linkage is listed as a priority to protect within our own city's local biodiversity strategy. And I simply ask, how can we as councillors oppose our own local biodiversity strategy? I definitely agree with Councillor Henderson, rehabilitation and linkage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dawn. I'll now put that to the vote. Those in favour? So, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Jones, Councillor Dawn, Councillor Miles, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Howlett, and those against, Councillor Singh, Councillor Bowman, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Podovnik, and myself. So the motion is carried. 9-5. Okay, councillors, we move on to flipping the pages. 14.4.1, which is the review of Massara Avenue and Henley Brook Avenue intersection arrangement, which is on page 129. A proposed motion by Councillor Bowman. If you'd like to read out your alternate motion, thanks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I move that Council resolves to request staff further investigate the amount of vehicles turning right to Massara Avenue and the amount of non-local through traffic. And the reason is the traffic survey was conducted only on one day and showed 670 vehicles turned right to Massara Avenue. No data was captured to determine whether a large number of these were non-local through traffic, and it's important to understand this before any further action is taken.
Thank you. Question? No? I was about to get there. I thought you were about to ask a question. I'll ask for a second. Councillor Miles, thank you. Councillor Bowman, do you wish to speak to your motion? Oh, sorry, is there anyone against? Councillor Johnson, do you wish to speak against? Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, this was an outcome of a notice of motion that Council fully supported last month, which was for staff to go and do some further detailed analysis. But what we've got here is exactly the same as what we got last time. Councillors, there's one issue when staff put a camera out there for one day, and that showed an extraordinarily large number of vehicles turning right in Massara Avenue. And I expect staff didn't think that would be the case. Now, it wasn't me going past there 10 times each hour, but we don't know what that was. We don't know where those 670 vehicles were going. However, if those 670 vehicles or close to them were all going into the Henley Brook area, then that would indicate there's a huge need for a right-hand turn. But what staff have done is said, we think that through traffic, we think it's rat running because we've had comments and complaints about rat running. But however, councillors, there was nowhere to rat run on this day. If you were rat running, you were going off Henley Brook Avenue into Massara to go through Henley Brook area to go back onto Nangara Road because of other roadworks and other issues that were going on. So, councillors, I think it's extremely important to work out where these vehicles were going, what they were doing before we make an impact, before we make a decision, which could significantly impact the residents of this suburb. Councillors, not asking for much, I'm asking for a detailed report on why there is or why there was on that day. Maybe on Tuesday or a Thursday or Friday there's less. Maybe on the Wednesday when it happened, there may be 650 people that all quite happy to go to KFC and come home that night. I don't know the answers to that, and staff don't know the answers to that, and I think we need to know the answers.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. Councillor Miles is the seconder. Anything to add? Now, also need a councillor to foreshadow the officer's recommendation in the event that the motion is lost. Thank you, Councillor Henderson. Do I have a seconder? No, don't. Just one moment. Okay. So then I'll ask, is anyone against? Councillor Johnson.
Against what?
Sorry. Just
The
one moment.
foreshadowed motion or the
Councillor
substantive?
Johnson. Just
I'm
moment,
asking a
please.
question. Which
yeah, but
motion?
it's just the tone that you use in place.
No, it's not the tone. I'm asking a question.
That's what I just said. So I did ask, is there any councillor who wishes to speak against the motion?
Yes. But I've got a question. I think we've not heard from Councillor Miles yet, unless he's
He
waived his
reserved the
right.
right to speak.
You can't reserve your right to speak. You can waive it.
He did.
So he's waived his right. Okay.
Just said that.
Yeah, look, councillors, we had an operational motion from Councillor Bowman at the last meeting. We've had a report from staff, and what it says here is that to determine the number or proportion of non-local and through traffic, an origin destination study would be required that would include the installation of roughly 20 to 30 cameras at a cost of approximately $30,000. Now, councillors, this is a very big study, and we've often heard from Councillor Bowman about the cost of councillors' motions, and here we have a $30,000 one. But we've already done the work, we've already done the study, and the staff are recommending that we continue with the existing design, which I think makes quite a bit of sense. The officer's original recommendation on maintaining a left-in, left-out arrangement was predominantly based on road safety and not traffic demand. Monitoring traffic further would not meaningfully alter the safety and risk of the road layout, even if a significant change in traffic was identified. And as such, the officer's recommendation of maintaining the left-in, left-out arrangement is unlikely to change. So I don't think pushing the staff to have another look at it at a cost of $30,000 is really an appropriate thing to do. And the second point I'd make to council is this. We've not heard, I didn't hear any deputations, and we've not seen any submissions at this. Correct me if I'm wrong. So really what we have is an idea from Councillor Bowman that has already been assessed by the staff, and they've said no. So without any clear community demand for this, I think that we should accept the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
I'll ask, is anyone like to speak for the motion? Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. Simply, I don't think we have enough information from the previous study that was done. I think Councillor Bowman has rightfully seen the issue and sought out the issues and the arguments that need to be dealt with. Sure, it might come at a cost of $30,000. I'm sure we can find $30,000 at our budget review. So just to be brief, I think we should get it right, and supporting this, but clearly if it does fail, I'll foreshadow the officer's recommendation, but I'm supporting Councillor Bowman at this stage.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. I'd just like to interject for a minute here and just point councillors to local meeting procedural law, which is 8.7b. The seconder to speak to the motion. The seconder may also reserve their right to speak at a later time in debate. Thank you. So I'll ask, is there anyone against the motion? Is there anyone against the motion? Does anyone like to speak for the motion? Right. Does anyone like to speak For or against? The right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, I didn't know, perhaps I should, that I should encourage people to come to council meetings to do a deputation. Because if that's what gets a motion through, I'll do it every time. But councillors, let me remind you, and perhaps I need to remind Councillor Johnson, perhaps he missed it. We had a written deputation on this item from a member of the public. So we have got a submission on that. Councillors, the cost, 20 to 30 cameras. I don't see anywhere in my motion that it talks about 20 to 30 cameras. This is something that staff have suggested, and I'd probably scratch my head to 20 to 30 cameras, considering I don't even think there's 20 to 30 streets in this area. But councillors, it comes back to one thing and one thing only. When an indicative study on one day only showed a significant amount of cars turning in off of Henley Brook Avenue, 670 vehicles, we do not know where they were going. If they were all residents, we would have a different report in front of us, I would expect. However, we do not know. So councillors, before we rule this completely out, I believe we need to be fully informed with the information of whether this may impact the residents. Now, we may find that there was 2 or 3 residents doing bob glaps around the road going past the cameras, because I know the cameras weren't plate recognition or anything like that. It wasn't me on that day, but I do go along that street a number of times. But councillors, the community members have reached out to me as a local councillor to say, we think there's issues, it is going to impact us, and hence the reason for my notice of motion, which we all fully supported, to ask for a report. Now that report came back in 1 month with no real additional information, and it did not tell us why there are 670 cars doing that right-hand turn, which is the basis of this issue.
Thank you very much, Councillor Bowman. We'll put that to the vote. Those in favour of the motion? Right, Councillor Singh, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Jones, Councillor Miles, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, and those against, Councillor Catalano, Councillor Dawn, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Prodovnik, Councillor Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Howlett and myself. So we had 8-7 and the motion is lost. 8-6. Sorry, 8-6, my apology. We'll just go through that again. Those for the motion: Councillor Singh, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Jones, Councillor Miles, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson. Just checking. Yep. And those against, we'll just double check: Councillor Catalano, Councillor Dawn, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Prodovnik, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Howlett, and myself. Okay. So then I have the presiding vote, which is against. Okay. How do you declare the end if I vote for it? So yep. That motion is then lost, and it will be 8-7. So we move the officer's recommendation. Councillor Henderson.
As foreshadowed, I move the officer's recommendation.
All right, a seconder. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Do I have anyone against? Councillor Bowman, do you wish to debate it? Thank you. Councillor Henderson? Nothing more? I'm going to put that to the vote. No, sorry, my apology. Councillor Bowman. Yeah. Deputy Mayor. Right.
Councillors, we're noting the review of the Massara Avenue and Henley-Brook Avenue intersection treatment options. That wasn't the notice of the motion. The notice of the motion was asking for a report. It was asking for a report on the issue of the 670 vehicles. How can we, as a council, say, it's all good, let's continue with this intersection treatment if we do not know and have not been provided why 670 vehicles on one day were turning right into Massara Avenue? This is a significant number of vehicles for that area on one day. Councillors, the fact that there's no member here to ask questions, or the fact that I didn't ask people to come and do a deputation, should not persuade you on which way to vote. It should be on what is good planning. And good planning would indicate that when we've had a problem and identified 670 vehicles turning right, where they will no longer be able to turn right, and what the impacts of those are, we should find that out first. Now, staff will be able to confirm that we've had numbers of complaints in this area about vehicles. We've had a number of complaints about issues with traffic. And the thing that we don't know is this going to make it worse when there's no right-hand turn? And I cannot answer that. And I don't think staff can answer it either, because it has not been looked at. The traffic modelling was done a number of years ago, and since then, additional schools are going to be built. But councillors, let's not worry about that, because I thought we're here to help our community when they have issues. I thought we were here to represent our community, and that is what I am doing tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. I'd like to ask if any councillors like to speak against the motion. Any councillors like to speak for the motion? If there's no councillors for or against, we'll put that. So, right of reply there or straight to the vote? Councillor Henderson, your right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing further to add.
Thank you. Councillors will put that to the vote. Those in favour? Councillor Catalano, Councillor Dawn, Councillor Singh, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Knight, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Prodovnik, Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Howlett. And those for, against? Councillor Bowman. Councillor Jones. Councillor Miles. Councillor Zanino. And myself. So it's carried 9-5. Okay, can we move down? So move on to 15.1, which is Councillor Miles' youth motion, which is on page 236.
Just got
Councillor
a question,
Miles.
Madam Mayor, about that counting. Are you sure that's correct?
Excuse me, Deputy Mayor, just one moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 6 with me. And myself. It's not bad. Isn't here. Here, over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had Henderson there. Myself. It's over here. Okay, I had 9-5. Councillors, I'll just say I had 9-5. Is that represented on the screen?
Yep.
Thank you very much. I'll go back. Thank you very much, Councillor Miles.
I move that Council resolve to 1. Reaffirm its commitment to supporting the development and civic participation of young people from all backgrounds. 2. Request that the CEO conduct a review of strategic and operational plans to ensure young people and their voices are heard at the City of Swan. 3. As part of the above review, consider the establishment of a Youth Advisory Council, YAC, and Youth Mayor role, in addition to the current Youth Leadership Committees. 4. As part of the above review, consider any budgetary implications. 5. Provide a report back to Council on the outcomes of the above review within the 24-25 financial year. And the reason for the motion is nearly 42% of City of Swan residents are aged under 30. Our local government has an important role in ensuring young people from all walks of life are given the best opportunities to succeed and thrive. It is essential that our strategic documents reflect the significance of supporting our young people today and into the future through all aspects of our organisation. This motion seeks to reinforce our Council's commitment to the development of young people in the city.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miles. Do I have a seconder? Sorry, Councillor Jones, thank you very much. Is there any councillor who wishes to speak against the motion? Councillor Henderson? Councillor Miles?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I've raised in the reasons for the motion, the City of Swan is composed of nearly 42% of residents aged under 30, a considerable amount. So it's essential that we support the development and success of our young people, as well as our seniors and everyone in between. And of course, this motion simply seeks to expand the scope of the current youth services review that will be undertaken by staff and explore the implementation of more formalised pathways for our young people to inform and assist the work of our local government, as they are directly affected by decisions today and into the future. So this is Council making strategic decisions, as we've heard many times in the past. Now, the Youth Summit report from 2021 outlined a number of recommendations developed in consultation with our young people. One of them was, and I quote, to create more internal opportunities for young people to be part of the decision-making processes, end quote. The motion before us directly addresses this overdue request by our young people. The city has an incredibly hard-working youth development team throughout our youth centres, the Our Space drop-in session, as well as Hyper. But there is more that we can and should do. As a young person who has accessed city services and been involved in some of the programs we've offered in the past, I've seen the need to bolster the mechanisms we have in place, so we can move beyond just simple recognition, a symbolic recognition of young people, and truly give them the platform and agency that they ask for and deserve. The work we do in the city can enable a shy young kid with ADHD who's gone to low SES and regional public schools his whole life to succeed and work to eventually to be elected to this very council, young people like myself. So I do urge my fellow councillors to support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miles. Councillor Jones, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not a lot to add. I have heard some but conversations regarding how it never worked in the past. However, I'm involved a lot with the youth, and I believe that with a change of our youth team that we have now, our youth leaders, our youth staff, I think this is a great idea, and I think this time it will be very successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Does anyone like to speak against the motion? Councillor Henderson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And just to be clear, I'm absolutely all in favour of us being very proactive in the youth domain, in the seniors domain, in fact, our whole volunteer and community-based domain. That's why I'm objecting to this, is because it's actually a narrow part of what we do. More importantly, I really question why this motion is before us now when we are already in the process of going through our youth development program, and when we're doing that, we should be letting the staff get on with their job, rather than coming in over the top of that and saying, well, this is what we think. Well, we already know all of those things. And I think what the mover has said goes without saying about youth, absolutely. But it's not just about youth, it's about the fact that the process is in place already, and I think we should let our staff get on with the process. Once we've known the outcome of that, then we can come in and have our fair share of debate, and that's how I'd like to see it progress, so that we get good outcomes across the board, and not just specifically youth, but everywhere.
Thank you, Councillor Henderson. I'll ask anyone would like to speak for the motion. Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Miles, for bringing this motion to Council, representing 42% of the population, but only 1 of 15 on this Council under the age of 30. I don't see it as a narrow view. I see it as adding to what the review of the staff are going to do. I think it's well timed in the fact that it's come now just before staff are about to undertake a review, because it provides our guidance to the staff of what we'd like to see in that review. I have questions about recommendation 3. I've seen it work really well and I've seen it not work so well. But let's see what the review comes back with that. But Councillor Miles hit a point as the Shire Public School Govo boy, and I know there's a few Govo alumni in this room that made it to this council. We should be supporting our younger people on this council to get more of a variety, to make up a little bit more of that 42% of residents that aren't actually represented on this council as well. And if this is what one of the outcomes is, fantastic. I see no problem with it and happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Bowman. I'll ask, is anyone against the motion? Does anyone like to speak for? Councillor Johnson, I've already asked if there was anyone against. Would you like to speak against the motion?
Speaking for the motion.
For the motion.
Yeah, thank you. Councillors, when I looked at this motion, I thought back to the time that fairly recently where the ward councillors and yourself, Madam Mayor, were at the Swan City Youth Service on Victoria Street in Midland, answering questions of the youth there. And I thought it was extremely positive. And one of the things I learned there, as I've known for a while actually, is that the City of Swan defines youth as between 12 and 25. So considering this motion, at one point I thought, well, you know, the majority of the youth are old enough to actually run for councillor and even to run for mayor. So is this potentially superfluous? But I think not. The part of the motion that I think sways it for me is it says in part 3, as part of the above review, consider the establishment. So it's just an additional thing being put into the mix that the staff would consider a youth advisory council and a youth mayor. I think that anything we can do to encourage participation in our democratic processes by our youth is a good thing, and I think the more we do, the better, to be honest. I'm someone who actually thinks that the voting age should come down to 16, believe it or not, because I think it's quite important, particularly at this time, that the views of younger people are taken into account. And the other reason I'm supporting this, of course, is because if I'm supporting youth, I have to note, of course, that Councillor Miles is himself a youth. So if I support youth, I couldn't possibly vote against it, could I? So therefore, I'll be supporting your motion, Councillor Miles.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll ask, is there anyone against the motion? Is anyone for the motion? Right, if there's no one for or against, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour, my reply. Thanks, Councillor Miles.
Thanks, Madam Mayor, for not forgetting me. Thanks, everyone, for a great debate. Love hearing about all your support, especially Councillor Jones, who I think particularly understands as a long-term resident and councillor of the City of Swan how transformational our youth development team can be and the capacity of our local government to support the development of young people, especially in Ellenbrook, you know, suburbs that, you know, really do need our support, young people especially. Thank you to Councillor Bowman, fellow public school Eastern Suburbs boy, for the support, as well as the Deputy Mayor as well. So Councillor Henderson, yes, staff will be going through a process of review. I understand that, but I've already spoken to staff, and young people alike will agree that this only supports their work, not hinder it. And look, Councillor, if you agree with the sentiment of my motion, and I do, and I think you do, I implore you to, rather than take your own narrow view on this, to heed the voices of young people, because if we're asking for it, as Councillor Deputy Mayor says, I'm a young person, so if we're asking for it, why not heed the calls and not contradict your own views?
Thank you, Councillor Miles. I'm now going to take a vote. Those in favour? Right, we're going to mark this. Okay, I'm going to mark this off very clearly. So Councillor Dawn, Councillor Singh, and I am speaking slowly so that the minute taker can record the councillors' names. Councillor Bowman, Councillor Jones, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Miles, Councillor Knight, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Podovnik, you can. Deputy Mayor, Councillor, that'd be the Mayor, that'd be myself. Those against, Councillor Catalano and Councillor Howlett. So the motion is carried. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 to 2. Thank you very much. Thanks everyone in the gallery for still being here. We're going to move on now to item 15.2, Deputy Mayor Johnson, revocation motion, CEO performance review on page 238. Absolute majority vote required. Deputy Mayor Johnson, can you please read out your notice of motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We give notice of a motion to revoke the decision in regard to item 15.1, CEO performance review of the 14th of August 2024 OCM. This is a revocation motion under section 11.4 of the City of Swan Meeting Procedures Local Law 2023. The reason for the motion: Councillor Aaron Bowman did not declare an interest adverse to impartiality at the August OCM, despite him having an offer of employment for the Shire of 2J to be the Shire CEO. Councillor Aaron Bowman did not declare an interest adverse to impartiality at the CEO Performance Review panel meetings. The Shire of 2J began its CEO recruitment process in early 2024. Councillor Bowman submitted a motion to put himself on our Swan CEO Performance Review Committee at the meeting of June the 14th, 2024. Councillor Bowman did not declare an interest adverse to impartiality at the June OCM. A notice of motion to revoke the decision needs to be supported by at least 1/3 of the number of officers of council, i.e. 5 inclusive of the mover, and as it says here, 2 original documents were signed by the relevant councils and are attached.
Point of order or a question?
Which one, Councillor? Question?
A question, actually. Did the Deputy Mayor say we give notice, or did you say he moves a motion?
I'm just reading out what it says here.
Well, giving notice, when's it going to be?
Deputy Mayor Johnson, read out notice of motion.
I'll start again then. Okay, we'll need to adjust it. Okay, so in which case, my motion is that Council resolves to revoke the decision in regard to item 15.1 CEO performance review of the 14th of August OCM. This is a revocation motion under section 11.4 of the City of Swan Meeting Procedures Local Law, and the reasons are unchanged.
Through you, Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just check with the Manager Governance, because I think the motion is clear to revoke, so I'm not sure that we can change it.
Through you, presiding member, we accepted the notice as being validly provided. But I mean, I think if council are comfortable with that amendment, then I think that's acceptable, because it was accepted in the form that it was submitted.
Through you, Mr. CEO, we have to vote just on whether council are willing to accept that then.
We can do it as a variation if it just adds clarification. If that's acceptable to
Can we have that update off my board before they do the vote?
Can we just make sure we've captured that so we're clear? This is a revocation motion that's been accepted to be tendered tonight. So, do you want to, Mr. Deputy Mayor, do you want to just change your wording to the beginning of your sentence? You started to say it just now. The council.
My motion is that council resolve to resolve. Yeah, that's correct. You can delete the two because we've got too many twos there.
So now we need a seconder.
Okay, I'll ask for a seconder. Councillor Catalano. Does any councillor like to speak against the motion? Councillor Miles?
The mover. So the mover needs to speak.
Sorry?
So we've got a move, through you, Madam Chair. We've got a mover in Councillor Johnson. We've got a seconder in Councillor Catalano. So is there anyone?
It's Councillor Miles.
Okay, so we now move to
Thank you.
the mover to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, I believe that my motion is self-explanatory now that we have that variation in place. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is it seconder, Councillor Catalano?
Nothing further to add.
I'll ask, is there any councillor against?
Yep. Okay.
Councillor Miles?
Sorry, I just didn't want to get up yet and disobey you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is confusing to me as to why this revocation motion is even here. Council resolved to support the CEO's performance review, and that was done within all the parameters in the Act and the regulations. And the reason for this motion is confusing to me because, as provided in the officer's comment, Councillor Bowman conducted himself within the confines of the law. Just like we ask every elected member here, they complete their duties, whether it's on a committee or through the council itself. And he did that on the CEO performance review panel, and he did that in the council meeting as well. So I really am confused as to why the apparent need or apparent Councillor Bowman apparently choosing not to declare information about his private employment could affect the decision of council. I think is incorrect that it's even being heard. So I'd really ask that we not support this motion, because all it does is waste time and it alienates a fellow council member from others and jeopardises the CEO's stability in his employment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. I'll ask, is there any councillors like to speak for the motion? Are there any councillors like to speak against the motion? If there's no councillor for or against, I'll ask you to write a reply.
I will not make a right of reply. Thank you.
Is that okay? Can you waive it? Yep. So, councillors, we'll put that to the vote. Those in favour of the revocation? We have Councillor Catalano, Councillor Dawn, Councillor Knight, Deputy Mayor, and Councillor Howlett. And those against? Councillor Singh, Councillor Bowman, Councillor Jones, Councillor McCulloch, Councillor Miles, Councillor Zanino, Councillor Henderson, Councillor Prodovnik, and myself. So the motion is lost. 5-9, thank you. Okay, if you're still here with us in the gallery, we're going to move on now to item 16, which is our confidential question.
I move we go behind closed doors.
Thank you, Councillor Miles. I was just going to let the gallery know that we're about to move into our confidential items, and I'll just ask if there was a seconder first. We sort of jumped the gun. I was just going to explain to the gallery first that we may be going behind closed doors. So I had Councillor Miles to move to go behind closed doors, and Councillor Singh as a seconder. Is anyone against? So it's carried. Unanimous. Thank you. And my apologies to the gallery. I'm not sure how long we'll be. If you wish to remain until the end when we come out from behind closed doors, you're welcome. If you are heading off, thank you very much for joining us tonight. they carry this. Yep. Items are in the confidential section. You're right. Sorry. Did you read that?
They're on the screen, if that helps.
Sorry, I read that.
So they're on your screen, or you can read it from here.
What am I reading out exactly though?
So you're reading that council resolved in relation to item 16.1, essentially to mature points of that block council resolved to adopt this recommendation.
Just read all of that?
Yep.
Up to where?
Yep.
Up to here.
Yep.
Just for them to proceed, stops there.
Yep.
So read there, okie dokie. And then the second one.
Second one is that. That's all of that. Just ignore that. This is just up to there.
Yep. And then the result of which is each.
Carry.
Okay. This one was.
Carry two.
Scratch that, get rid of everyone.
So it's on the screen if you want.
Yeah, it is. I've just got a few notes here, so. Okay. Okay. We're back online yet?
Are we live?
Thank you. Welcome back to those in the gallery. And as we went behind closed doors, we've now come back out from behind closed doors. And just to update those watching at home, we had 2 confidential items, which was 16.1, and that's a proposed motion by Deputy Mayor Johnson that the council resolve to adopt the officer's recommendation with an additional point 4. 1, approve the request for extension to the material commencement date applicable to lot 201, number 3 Junction Parade, Midland, the latest date MC Stage 2, for 12 months from October the 14th, 2024 to October the 13th, 2025, as per clause 33.3D of the Sale and Development Agreement. Part 2, inform the proponent of council's decision. Part 3, request city solicitors to draft and prepare the formal notice to the buyer granting approval. And 4, request the CEO to write to Mr. DeMole requesting Mr. DeMole advise the council of what he considers would be an acceptable construction cost for him to proceed. And that was carried 12-2. And the second item was 16.2, which is the budget adjustment, grant opportunity for electric vehicle charging infrastructure. This was the second confidential item. It was an absolute majority vote required, and we had proposed motion from Councillor Henderson that the council resolve to 1, approve an adjustment to the 2024-2025 city budget as detailed in this report in accordance with section 6.8(1) of the Local Government Act 1995, upon written confirmation from Walga that complete funding is available, and that was carried unanimously. So I'd just like to thank everyone very much for coming in tonight, and we wish you a safe trip home. And we move to part 17, which I've lost my thing, is notice of motions for consideration at the following meeting if given during the meeting. Deadline for submissions will be 5 p.m. on Tuesday, September the 17th, 2024. Do councillors have anything? Nothing. Thank you. And that brings us to the closure of the meeting and concludes tonight's council meeting at 8:07 p.m. Thank you.